And a happy Wednesday to you. Thank you for coming back to join for another Wednesday beer delicious installment. This will be a fun one and somewhat historic because we've got some fun things to announce on this one. We got to get this a little bit more formalized here. So let's start off with a little quick cheers. If you've got something handy, feel free to raise a glass, kick back a little sip. Yummy. Yes, happy Wednesday. Sorry that I missed you last week. We just got a little carried away on a little excursion to Asheville, North Carolina, and we had planned to do a remote, and then we just got on vacation. So, not sorry. We had a great time. I'll tell you more about it later on. This evening's points of interest. We've got a few. One of which is we've got a name for this darn thing that we've come up with. I'll tell you that in just a moment. We've got some beers that we're going to feature, some of the stuff that we've got on tap. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the cool things in Asheville. And we're going to announce the winner of the Samuel Smith prize pack from a couple weeks ago. So, first things first, what are we calling this Wednesday night beer program thing? Drum roll, please. Brrr. All right, we're going with Tap Talk. It's a name that kind of got workshopped a little bit, and amongst all the various other brilliant, clever things that you guys came up with, Tap Talk was the winner. Partially something that had been in my brain, but then also one of our loving customers, Mr. Tim, we know him as Timmy Gould, was one who suggested in the comments. So Timmy, you've got yourself at least one free beer. Maybe I'll be even more lenient and get you a couple. But yeah, so Tap Talk, that's what we're going to call it. At least for now. I don't know. I think that seems like a darn good name. And we're talking about tap beer, so Tap Talk. Kind of reminds me of Church Chat. Remember with Dana Carvey, Saturday Night Live back in the 90s. Hopefully be more informative and hopefully at least somewhat as entertaining as Church Chat. All right, so we got Tap Talk. So welcome to, we got a bunch of people logging on here. So yeah, again, if you've got something in front of you, raise a glass, cheers. We'll do another cheers, why not? All right, so what are we gonna do tonight? One of the things I wanted to focus on, because we have a few interesting beers and the theme just kind of came to me, talking about texture or mouthfeel. So I think when times we talk about a lot about beer, there's often a lot of talk about flavor and smell. Those are two of the big things. But the mouthfeel, the way that the beer, the texture of it, how it actually feels when you're drinking it, is actually a really important part of beer. And there's a lot of different things that can influence that. And it's an interesting way of understanding how the texture or characteristic of a beer can have an impact on the flavor or the aroma. It can take a very interesting twist on a beer just by enhancing the aroma or the flavor with texture. So one that I've got in my hands right now, I'm going to freshen it up a little bit just so you can see something fun. So this is our first beer, so you can get a little bit of if you're a fan of beer aesthetics, watching a nitro beer kind of settle out is amongst, ooh, look at that, we gotta get the proper logo placement. Ooh, look how pretty it is. That creamy head rising to the top. You might be familiar with seeing this happen with Guinness. That's a beer that most people know it from. And can anyone tell me what is causing that bubble sensation to happen? There's a special gas that we use in these beers. All right, well, I don't know. You guys, I'm not gonna wait for you to come up with the answer. You'll figure it out. Nitrogen. So nitrogen, this is beer from Fair State Brewing out of Minneapolis. We've featured them before. They just make some damn good beer, and we just happen to have had it on. I promise they're not paying me to play. Ooh, look at, there we go. Nitrogen, good job, woohoo. This beer from Fair State is called, the name of it is kind of a weird one as far as understanding what it is. It's called Is That All I Get? And it, so I'm sure there's a clever name behind the name. I don't know exactly what it is. Perhaps they can let us know. But it is a English mild, a dark English mild. So you can see kind of a dark amber sort of color. This is a classic English beer. And the reason that it's served on nitrogen, and what nitrogen is a gas similar to CO2. You might have heard of, nitrogen is laughing gas, things like that. It can be used in beer. It has no flavor or taste, so it does not affect the flavor or the taste of the beer. And it's a much finer gas. The bubbles are a lot smaller than CO2. And so it adds a creaminess in the beer. And sometimes people will describe this as almost tasting flat because it doesn't have that really sparkly, bubbly characteristic that you think of when you're drinking a beer or even like a soda. It's much softer and smoother and can be kind of silky. And what it's trying to replicate is naturally carbonated beer. So cask beer, or real ale as it's known primarily known in the United Kingdom, is a process of serving beer with its own natural carbonation rather than pushing CO2 gas into it like you'd pressurize soda or other beer. It naturally carbonates, and that CO2 that it generates is much softer and finer, similar to the way that nitrogen comes through. So that's what nitro beer is mimicking. So it's a blend of 70% nitrogen, 30% CO2. And it has the effect of creating this kind of creamy, rich head that sits on the beer, and it creates a different experience. If you were to have the same beer on regular CO2, you would find that it would probably change the way that the flavor comes across. You might notice that the CO2 has its own acidity, and that can often bring out different flavors in the malt. Might make the hops come across a little bit more sharp and bitter. And similar with the malt, it can just enhance some of those things. Whereas when you have on the nitrogen, the hops are a little bit more mild and subdued, not as bitter, and often you get a better is subjective, but a more interesting reflection of the malts that are used in here. So the grains that are used in the beer. So this one almost has an English tea, like a black tea kind of character, and some dark fruits going on in there. Fruits. And then it just has that really soft, kind of easy drinking mouthfeel. It's kind of a love or hate thing. I know Ashley's not a huge fan of nitro beers and cask beer. I mean, not as much. It's just something I really enjoy. I seek it out. But everyone's a little bit different. Texture can be a weird thing. So nitro is probably one thing you might be familiar with seeing around. It's an interesting way of experimenting with beers. Oftentimes you'll see with stouts, because stouts are roasty and bitter and dry. And so serving them on nitrogen can often enhance some of the chocolatey flavors while mellowing out some of the roast and some of the bitterness. And it often can take a little extra time to pour. This one, if you come in and order it, usually this particular one is being kind of a two-stage pour, where you have to pour it, let it kind of settle out, and do a second pour to kind of get the right amount of head on the beer. So anyway, Fair State Is That All I Get? Dark Mild on Nitro. This one's freshly on, so come and get some while you can. It's a beer lover's beer, so really nice amber, low strength, and interesting and refreshing. Okay, next texture beer. Let's get it. Ooh, we're going weird. We're getting weird, folks. Let's do it. Check this thing out. This is beer, believe it or not. You might think that it is a smoothie, and you're not entirely wrong. If you can see it in the glass, it leaves some bits behind, but it is no doubt delicious. I'm gonna take a sip. It's like I had a health drink. This one is a cool beer from Humble Forager Brewing, which is kind of a unique concept. And this one is part of their Coastal Sunshine series. This is a long-standing series that they've been doing with lots of different fruit variations on it. This is version 14, and it is basically a fruit smoothie sour ale. So it is a beer. It is kind of a unique style of beer that really didn't even exist in any commercial sense more than just about a little over 5 years ago or so, we weren't seeing smoothie sour beers in any large capacity, and they're still kind of under the radar. You can chew it, yeah. Like what? Yes, thank you, Carol. It has a thicker character. It is the thickness in there is from fruit. It uses pureed fruit, just like a smoothie. In this case, mangosteen, which is a I wish I could tell you more about it. I'm doing a bad job of my beer research. I'll promise I'll have more talking points when you come in this weekend. I know that it is a highly prized flavor in fruit. Go ahead, if you know a lot about mangosteen, let me know. Also has peach and strawberry. I know about those. So I think all the fruits kind of come together to enhance. And this one, the texture is the puree, is the fruit actually used in the beer. When you pour this thing, it's like still, it's like a smoothie coming out. And that is designed to create this whole flavor experience of like a fruit smoothie, but it is still a beer at its base. Still has alcohol in it. And Humble Forager has been making a lot of these styles of beer very popular in the upper Midwest here. Forager Brewing is based in Rochester, and then the head brewer has created this other brand, Humble Forager, which is produced either by Fair State Brewing in Minneapolis or by Octopi Brewing just outside of Madison. And they have really garnered a popular reputation amongst people who know their beer and know specialty stuff, and things like this Coastal Sunshine series have really put them on the map. So once again, this is something, if you've never had a beer like this, come in and give it a try. It's just crazy. It's unusual. It's very interesting. It's slightly tart. It has a really rich fruit flavor. You can definitely taste the peach, the strawberry, mangosteen if you're adept enough to know. But it would change your perspective on what you think beer could be. There is some carbonation present in there, but it's largely smoothie texture. There's no other way to really say it. But you'll see more and more of this style around if you're looking for it. If you do order it or get it in cans, I recommend taking some time to kind of roll the can around, kind of give it a little bit of a swirl, because oftentimes that sediment will want to kind of settle out into the bottom of the can. So just giving it a swirl gives it a chance to kind of get all mixed together. So this is really cool, interesting new territory that beer is going. And while it's not something I probably am going to be drinking pint after pint of, it's not really the intent. This is more to showcase what can be possible with flavors in beer. And I think it's really cool. So there we go. Humble Forager Coastal Sunshine. All right. And our last beer showcasing texture here is from our friends at Central Waters. This beer is just opaque. You can't see through that at all. It is not necessarily the most jet black dark beer, but it's definitely inky and rich and thick. And this is the Central Waters 7-Layer Stout. It's named 7-Layer Stout after the Midwest tradition of the 7-layer bar, which is a kind of staple at a lot of barbecues and church basement events. I find that it's often there. And so they've taken their reputation for making big stouts. Central Waters is from Amherst, Wisconsin, and they have gotten a reputation for making some of the best barrel-aged stouts pretty much in the country. This is a rich, strong beer, clocks in at 12% alcohol, and it's aged in bourbon barrels with coconuts and graham cracker and vanilla and lactose. So it has some sweetness in there, which contributes to the mouthfeel. Let's taste it. So coming off the smoothie beer, this feels more like what you'd expect a beer to be, but still compared to like any type of normal strength amber or lager or dark beer or anything, much thicker, much richer feel, and a healthy dose of sweetness in there that I find to be not too much. I mean, it's not something you're gonna drink a ton of, partially because of the alcohol content, but also it is it's a strongly flavored beer. You get the layers of coconut, you get some of the graham cracker flavor in there. The bourbon barrel aging adds a little bit of booze and a little bit of coconut on its own and oak. So there's a whole lot going on with this, and this is one that I recommend getting some of it, letting it sit for a bit. These big, strong, full-flavored beers benefit from warming up a little bit so you can actually taste all the different layers. Because sometimes if they're really cold and it's a real strong, rich beer, sometimes the flavors can be a little bit harsh, or you might even taste the alcohol content a little bit more. So often, if you're getting a really strong beer, my best recommendation is, you can even like hold on to it a little bit, speed up the warming process. Just let it get a little bit warmer and it'll taste a lot better. This is part of their limited release series of various stouts that they produce throughout the year. We just put it on tap, and it's just super tasty. Probably not one you're going to have a ton of because it is strong, but it might be a good one to fill a growler and take home and share with the crew. And also a fun and interesting beer to possibly play around with. Maybe putting a little toasted marshmallow in there or something like that. That's something I might mention that we learned on our tour. So let's just, for a quick review, beer texture. We've got beer gas changing the flavor and profile with nitrogen, smoother, creamier texture. Here we've got straight up fruit being added to the beer, creating the puree effect. And then here we've got a whole bunch of different things. Oh, one ingredient I forgot to mention here is lactose. Lactose is milk sugar. So it's sugar that comes from milk. It is not fermentable, meaning that yeast can't digest it. So normally if you add sugar to beer, yeast eats it up. It turns it into more alcohol and CO2. But in this case, when you add the lactose, yeast can't digest it, so it stays in the beer, and that gives you sweetness, and it also gives you a richness, like an actual texture, mouthfeel. Ooh yeah, ice cream beer float. We have tried it with this beer. I would say give it a shot on your own as well. It's a touch on the sweeter side for a stout float, but still very good. So if you are kind of a glutton for sweet stuff, do it, make it happen. So there we go, some beer texture, some fun stuff to play around with. You have some cool ones on tap to enjoy right now. Yes, Chuck, yeast is lactose intolerant, it would seem. I don't know, maybe it farts a lot afterwards. Might not be a great thing. All right, now we're gonna just do a quick breakdown of, Ashley and I took a trip to Asheville, North Carolina last week, just as a getaway. To enjoy spending some time outside of the Midwest. We've heard it's a cool city. We got to spend Ashley's birthday there, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And I just wanted to give a couple highlights of, in case you're either going to Asheville or you're considering a place to go travel and you like to drink beer and eat food and do outdoor things, Asheville's a pretty awesome place, located in western North Carolina. I'll just give you a quick rundown of some of our favorite places and why we like them. And you can just go check it out yourself. Well, I brought back a couple beers, so you'll be able to try some at Thirsty Thursday this week. One of our favorite places was Zillicoa Brewing Company, located on the French Broad River, which flows north, which, I mean, why not? That's cool. Goes right through the city of Asheville, and they're located on the north side of the city. They have an awesome outdoor space, really interesting beers, probably some of the more interesting beers we saw in Asheville. Not only did they have some really cool traditional lagers, like really nice Pilsner, they had a rye Zwickel beer, which is really cool and interesting. And then their sour beer program was also very cool. They had some very interesting wild yeast spontaneous, or not, I don't think they had anything spontaneous necessarily. Maybe they did, I could be wrong. But they had some really interesting sour and wood-aged beers there. Well worth checking out. Super cool patio right on the river. Very cool spot. Another spot that we really enjoyed was Burial Brewing. We kind of hit it when the weather was weird. It was snowing. We were down there from Wisconsin, and it freaking snowed, of course. But we did get some sunshine. I felt like I didn't get to scratch the surface of Burial, but everything I had there was delicious. They had everything from some really nicely balanced lagers and dark lagers to Belgian-style saisons, really strong, big, rich barrel-aged stouts, hazy IPAs, kind of run the gamut, and a really neat outdoor space, kind of more on the heavy metal sort of. They had like scythe tap handle and stuff like that, so just kind of a cool, interesting spot. Beers were excellent. Didn't even get a chance to try nearly all of them, but really highly regarded as well. Another place that we enjoyed for sour beers was the Funkatorium, just a couple blocks away from Burial, down in the South Slope part of Asheville. That's part of Wicked Weed Brewing Company, and it was their sour beer program, the Funkatorium. So all sorts of crazy sour beers and some of their classic stuff too, but then they had an awesome bottle shop there. So if you like sour beers, I would say it's a must-go when you're in Asheville. Sierra Nevada has a satellite brewery, it's enormous. It's hard to call it even a satellite, but Sierra Nevada is based in Chico, California. They built this facility in 2012 and opened it in 2015, and it is just massive. The scale of the brewing there is enormous, but it's also feels very much on brand. It's very thoughtfully created. The beer selections are excellent, including stuff that you won't find at other places. And if you had a big group, it would be the place to go because there's outdoor space. Absolutely well worth checking out. Plus, it's right by the airport, so it's an easy stop. And then probably one of our favorite non-brewery places that we visited was called The Whale. The Whale Craft Beer Collective. And I envision it as a place, like if we were going to open somewhere in Asheville, it would be something I would strive for. Lots of interesting beers that aren't necessarily from Asheville, stuff from all across the country and all across the world, including lots of specialty rare Belgian sour ales, and you're sensing a theme here, like some good sour beers, amongst other things. And that was a really, really cool spot with a nice outdoor patio and then a food spot connected right to it that you could get a variety of tasty food options and sit out on the patio and enjoy. And then our last spot, maybe our favorite though, and it was not beer related at all, it was Whole Donuts. This really wonderful donut spot, and made fresh to order. Literally, if you order one donut, they fry it fresh on the spot. And Lori is like the heart and soul of Whole, at least as we experienced. She came out cheering for every person that she was bringing donuts and coffee to, and just really kind of made our trip. It was close to our place. We went there 3 times, and I think we might be moving in with Lori sometime soon. So if you go there, I'd say it's a must stop in Asheville. All right, cool. We're wrapping it up because I think I've babbled on plenty. So to wrap it up, our final thing for the evening is announcing the winner from our prize pack of last 2 weeks when I said post your comments or photos of beer while you're playing along, and you win the Sam Smith gift pack. And the winner of that is none other than Mr. Chuck Abrams. And because we can do this tongue-in-cheek, and hopefully I don't offend any British people, I'm calling you Wanker of the Week Award. Chuck, you win, but I get to tease you, but you get to enjoy some good beer. So come on in when you're in here, and who knows, maybe Chuck will allow you to behold his winnings. And we'll do some other prizes in the future too. I don't know what they'll be because we're still figuring this whole thing out. But this has been the first official named episode of Tap Talk. So if you have other ideas, things you want to know about, things that you're interested in learning about, or that you want to hear me ramble on for a couple minutes on a Wednesday evening, feel free to shoot us a message either in the comments, stop by, say hi at the shop. Let me know. And who knows, maybe you'll even make a guest appearance on a future episode or something like that. All right, so thank you all. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday, and hopefully the weather starts coming around for us, and so we can do some patio partying. What do we got coming up here at the Punk? We have beer event next week, Sierra Nevada. We're going to be doing a tasting here next Thursday. You're not going to want to miss that. And we are going to be we'll be closing early next week, Wednesday. Next week, Wednesday, we'll be closing early to attend a latte art throwdown in Duluth. So if you happen to find yourself in Duluth around 4:30, come and check it out. It will be fun. Oh, and we'll be closed on Sunday for Easter because I think that goes without saying. But yes, wanted to make sure you know about that. Thank you guys. Hope you have a great evening, and we will check in again soon. Cheers.